Hello, my name is Ralf Friedrichs. I'm an addiction recovery coach and the host of the Take Your Life Back Today show. Excuse me. As an addiction recovery coach, I want to share something with you. Let me be crystal clear to leave an everlasting impact upon you. Just imagine being buried alive. You're in a coffin, but you know you're not dead. You don't know how to get out of that coffin. You tried lifting the lid, but the enormous weight upon the lid prevents you from opening the lid. You tried banging on the lid to hopefully unsettle the dirt. Maybe somebody might notice and start digging their way down towards you. This is what it's like to find itself at the lowest point of alcohol and drug addiction. You know you need help. You know you can't do it on your own, but you don't know where to turn. In reality, there are probably people staying by your grave. You just don't know that. You just think you're going to die. Usually, though, people don't think about death when they're habitually abusing drugs and alcohol. In order to feed an addiction, you have to be great at repressing the fear of death. I often ask you, my audience, did it ever cross your mind while you're abusing drugs and alcohol that maybe, just maybe, you might overdose and take something away that God had given you called life? And if that's not selfish enough to take your life away from you, how about taking your life away from the people that love and care for you most? What about your children, your grandchildren, your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, brother and sister? Is it fair for you to take your life away from them? If you are having issues with alcohol and drug addiction, please call me at 844-405-HELP, and I promise I will help you take your life back. We all have to practice tough love with our own families. Usually it's our children. We could have 1, 2, 3, 6 children, and there's going to be 1 or 2 of them that are rebels, that just do and say whatever they want. Whether it's the truth or not, they want you to believe it. Whether they can keep a job or not, they want you to accept it. Well, parents, it's about time we all utilize a thing called tough love. Sometimes parents wonder, do I need to be tougher with my daughter or my son? The parents of teens continually consider whether they are being clear enough, firm enough, or tough enough. It can be a daily question. Much of this internal debate comes from our own childhood experiences. I grew up in a pretty semi-disciplined house. My parents had 3 girls and 2 boys. And at some point or another, I felt like I was wearing them down. So we were given a lot of freedom and not that much supervision because my father was always on the road and my mother had her hands full with 2 handicaps. Looking back, their parental behavior had they had both good and bad consequences. On the other hand, we became very independent. To this day, I feel I'm so independent. And there were times when we would have to benefit from more guidance, maybe from a relative or so. Other adults grew up in very strict families that you might know. Their parents may have run a very tight ship with little room for expression. In those families, my friends, children were able to be seen but not heard. Some of those parents were very punitive and very controlling. None of their children would even think to question their parents or refuse to do what they were told. These individuals will also tell you that they both had good and bad consequences that came with the strict upbringing. Many of these children became disciplined adults, but they might not have learned how to handle their emotional life very well. Much of our parenting perspective comes from our own lived experiences. Truly, we want to model the parental behaviors we'd like as children and discard, I should say, the ones that we thought weren't so hot. We want our children to become disciplined, responsible adults with tools to handle the complex emotional lives they will face. Certainly, we are impacted by the time we live in. When I was a kid, there was no such thing as cell phones, a great tool to keep track of your teens when they don't answer the phone. There is now technology that permits parents to track where their teens are in space and time through GPS on their cell phone. Texting in my day meant writing a piece of paper on school. Remember growing up, I think the beeper had just come out, and our culture today is even more youth-centered than it was 40 years ago. These changes impact our parenting style and problems we'll encounter today. Finally, as parents, we all are more sympathetic to the experiences of children than perhaps our parents were. This is partly because the cultural shift of perception and partly the result of experiencing growing up. We may have felt that our parents weren't so aware of the struggles that we as children were facing. We want to be more empathetic or We want to be more involved with our children. So given these considerations, when is tough love required? How do we know when to be firm and when to be flexible, when to be stern and when to be soft? Let's be clear. As you may recall from the previous videos that I've done, I am encouraging parents to consistent and predictable with their tough love. Be consistent and be predictable so the child knows what to expect. But it is also important that you be very clear. What does this mean? Let your kids know that at every stage of their development, what you expect. When you want them to make their bed, show them what it should look like. Let them know that you expect when you ask them to be clear, when they get up to clear the table, that they clear that table. Be clear about your behavior or the behaviors that you want them to exhibit. And make sure that your expectations match the development stage. You have to be authoritative. Authoritative parents are clear, consistent, predictable, and firm. They are not inflexible, harsh, and judgmental. They have earned their children's respect, and they are models for the behavior they expect. They walk the talk and it engenders respect. They don't need to rely on their position, their strength, or might. They rely on the authority figure. You need to be firm when it is required. The concept of tough love was coined in a book named the same in 1968. It really refers to the notion that firmness and love are not mutually exclusive, setting a clear limit which are firmly applied to the loving manner expresses the heart of tough love. It is often risky behavior which requires the application of firm love. Some years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, a parent came to me about their 19-year-old daughter who was involved in risky alcohol abuse. Her daughter had left home at the age of 18, bottomed out, and wanted to move back in, but not really addressed her substance abuse issues. Her mother was in great distress. This was her baby. She didn't want to say no. I encouraged her to stick to her guns and not let her daughter come home until she admitted, accepted, and went to treatment for her alcohol abuse. Months went by. Finally, her daughter did get the help she needed. Years later, her daughter, now an adult, I should say, in the years to come, her daughter, when she will be an adult, hopefully come and see me. I hope she tells me, I hope she tells me that she appreciated what I did, that I told her mother to stick to their guns. I hope she says, "Thank you, Ralph, for telling my mother not to let me move in." I know she loves her mother, and I hope she appreciates that I talked her mother into not letting her move in. I hope that one day will be music to my ears. And if she comes back to me and yells at me, and I ask her, "How's your life?" and she tells me she has a husband and children, but she's still yelling at me, I won't take it personal. For I have helped this 19-year-old find a way out of the bottle and into a treatment center. And from there she found her way to find a husband and to have children and to have a career. So if she feels that she wants to yell at me now, that's fine. I accept that. My job is not to make friends. My job is to help people with addiction issues. My job is to help people with life issues. My job is here at the Take Your Life Back Today show. And my job is only a phone call away for you to utilize at 844-405-HELP. And together, you and I will help you take back your life.